Yes, sir. We got Mr. AC Ramos in his house today.
Yeah, if you notice, we're not in our regular studio. We are remote, I guess, today.
This is a very special show, especially for the ones that are, or podcasts, I would say, that are into wholesaling, because this man is a machine when it comes to wholesaling houses and flipping houses. I know if he flips some houses as well.
It's one of the big ones in the Houston area.
In the Houston area, yes. I remember when I was a little kid.
When you were a little younger,
I would see AC wholesaling houses, you know. But anyways, man, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having us, AC.
Oh, thank you for being here.
We appreciate you opening your space to allow us and come in and do this podcast with you. And I want to get down into the great story of yours, man. Who is AC Ramos?
Yeah, don't get scared. It's
No,
okay.
mean, just to let you know, I mean, we love when we have people that have come from like the lowest of the lowest, because it teaches people that if you could do it, if you're where you're at right now, pretty much anyone can do it, right?
Oh,
and that's
yeah.
why we want to try to present to our audience that it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to have like a high IQ or college degree or any of that. Literally, this is a business where if you have the spirit and you want to succeed and you put the effort, you can make it. And today, for our audience, this is going to be a great show because AC has an amazing story. So let's get started with that. Like when you grew up, when you were a kid. First of all, are you local from Houston or?
Oh yeah, born and raised
Houston.
in the Heights area.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Oak Forest area, actually. Shepherd Forest, Oak
Yeah,
Forest.
yeah, we know where that is.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting what's happening there right now.
Oh, it's changed since when I was younger, definitely.
Yeah. So how was it when you were younger? I mean, when you grew up, can you tell us a little bit?
It was definitely not as high end as it is now, because I was just talking to somebody the other day. I remember growing up, those houses were worth like $60,000 when I was like 18 years
ARV,
old.
60 grand.
Yeah, ARV. Yeah, now right now that I look back, I'm like, man, ARV back then was like 60, maybe 70.
I should have bought
50,000.
all that neighborhood.
You can get half a lot for 60, probably.
Yeah.
Yo,
Half.
not even, not
even that. There you go.
The dirt alone is worth 300.
Wow.
The dirt alone in Shepherd Forest in the good areas is like worth 300. Oak Forest is even more. Yeah. So no, that whole area is just blown up. But no, it wasn't like that back in the day. I mean.
So you're a true Houstonian because that's Houston, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, can't get more Houston than that, or other than downtown, I guess.
Yeah, no, it was very central. So I've always loved being near the middle of the city and everything, which is kind of strange for me because I lived in that area till just last week.
Okay.
I just moved out to Tomball and got a house with my girlfriend.
Good.
So now I'm in the suburbs and I'm like, man,
Now you gotta commute.
Yeah, it's like man, it's like
now you'll know the Houston traffic and.
now it's like where we going to dinner? It's like Olive Garden.
What you've been missing for the past 30 something years.
Yeah, because the Heights is just a different feel.
Yeah,
it's so different, and I just love it. But I'm getting there. I'm like in the suburbs.
So I mean, were you a straight A kid, and you did wonderful, went to college, had a master's degree in? No,
I actually did really good in school. I went to private schools. As long as I went to school, I was in private schools. I only went to school to 8th grade though. Actually, when I finished school, I finished up to 8th grade in private schools, and then I started at public schools like at Waltrip here in Houston, and then I ended up going out to Apple Springs, Texas, and going out there to play football and go to high school for a little while. But I only made it about 23 days and realized that I had lost my grandfather in my 8th grade year, so I guess I just for some reason I didn't want to go to school no more.
Okay.
And I ended up around 15 years old. I was playing basketball and met a lot of people playing basketball and was playing at local parks here in Oak Forest area and met a lot of people and just started meeting kind of the wrong people, I guess.
Okay.
And
especially when you're playing basketball.
Yeah, when you're playing basketball and
that's not an elite sport, if you will, right? It's not like polo. You're not playing polo
or tennis.
Yeah, or tennis. By the way, I used to play basketball too, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I ended up meeting a guy who ended up being a very kind of big time drug dealer, I guess, playing basketball, but he was well connected, like a business kind of guy, and ended up getting connected with him and I actually did some drives and stuff like that. That's what I did is I drove across country a couple times for them, and that's how I got into that. And then just mixed and mingled with those people for
That's
a few
it.
years, and then ended up getting in trouble when I was like 18 years old. It was like Valentine's when I
Wow.
was 18 years old in February of when I was 18. Got in trouble, and so by the time I was 21, I was coming out of prison for the second time.
For the second time.
For the second time, so I went in and then violated. When I came out, I violated and went back. So it was all
Yeah,
the same
because
stuff.
you went back to the same friends probably.
Yeah,
the first
yeah,
time.
you go back to the same friends,
Yeah.
you end up in the same circles.
It's that basketball.
So,
court, man.
We
I'm telling
miss you, you know.
And you know what? I tell people this all the time. I was just a businessman in the wrong business because I wasn't a bad person. You know what I mean? Like, and what I realized is it's all about your why, right?
Right.
And when your why changes, you know, it was about like trying to not be a. I was trying to just learn how to be a businessman, I guess, and make money,
Right.
and not have to rely on other people. But you don't realize how that grows on you, and you become a business person in that. And when I realized when my why changed, when I came out the second time, I signed for 2 years the second time, and then 5 days before I turned myself in to do the 2 years, I found out my girlfriend was pregnant, and so we were gonna have a baby in like 9 months,
Oh, wow.
and she was barely pregnant. So I actually talked to my lawyer. They went back. They got my sentence reduced to 7 months, so I could be out in time for my son to be born. That saved my life.
That changed.
That changed my why. That saved my life because my first son was born in September of '99. I knew I never wanted to do anything that was going to take me away from my family, and I just had a feel that there's just more to it now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you'll
yeah.
do more for other people than you ever will for yourself, right?
Right.
So my child was born. I knew I had to figure something out. So I sold car stereos online. I started out and they did pretty good. And I knew a little bit about real estate. You know, I'd read some books while I was locked up and stuff, and was always interested. Well, the first real estate deal I ever had to do was my house that we ran the business out of before I went to jail. So the dope house, we went back. I went and visit my friend.
How about we wholesale our dope house?
Yeah,
Or we flip it. You know, hey, why not?
flip this dope house.
It was the best way to start. You know?
flip this dope
At least they know the house in and out.
Well,
you know?
I bet you the neighbors were probably the most excited about that flip.
Yeah, they were like,
Well,
we
they-
know the roof is leaking. We know the foundation is tilting that way.
Yeah. It was in a really nice. It was off Long Point and Bingo here in Houston, so
Okay.
in Spring Branch.
Yeah.
Nice neighborhood. So I knew a little bit about real estate, and I went to visit my friend. Just so happens the day I go visit him, this other company's there looking to buy the property, and gives him an offer. While they're walking around, I'm talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I gotta sell the property." He's like, "When you went away," he's like, "Man, like, you know, my car got repoed now because, like, you know."
Yeah, he didn't have any more income. 'Cause
Yeah,
his
that
income
was
went away.
our income. That was
Right.
everything. So the house was now in foreclosure. His car got repoed. You know, he said our friends didn't talk to us no more. His girlfriend left. Everything fell apart. Right? You know, the usual story. So now he's there selling the house to this company, and they offered him 27, and he owed 28. And I was
Right.
like, dude, I'll get you 33, so you can get apartment and stuff. Got him
We
his
get
33.
we get $5,000 to move
Yeah.
somewhere else. You know?
and you got to be able to get out of here. So
Right.
Get the business
So-
rolling somewhere else.
so we did, and I didn't know that much about real estate, but I knew that I thought the values were about 75. So we were into it for 33 and 22 to fix it. So we're in for 55.
So what do you do? Do you go get a hard money loan or something like
I
that?
actually had a family member that was, I didn't know about private money. I didn't know what
Okay.
it was, but I had a family member that had IRA money or 401k money. I don't remember what it was then, but we rolled it over, did whatever we have to do to be able to use it in this deal. She became a private lender essentially. She was, or my partner. It was my aunt. And my aunt is more like my mother. She's been
Right.
the one who's like supported me my whole life.
Yeah, I was
like,
going to
taken
ask
care
you,
of me.
because this is something that our audience might be asking right now. I mean, how did they trusted you with the money? If
I
you're-
was thinking the same
yeah,
thing, man.
I guess
It's
this is
like,
the question in everybody's mind. It's like, okay, you just came out of prison for the second time. How did they trust you with their money?
Yeah.
Well, I never went to prison because I was bad with money, though. So
Okay.
that was never the problem. But she knew that I explained to her, I said, look, we could buy it, fix it up. This is what I think the values are. And she happened to be a real estate agent at the time. She had just got her real estate
Okay.
license. So she knew the values, and she could see.
she confirmed what you were telling
Yes,
her.
like
pretty
we
much.
didn't know everything, right? So this was our first deal. So we got into it, and we made pretty good money on that one. And we continued to flip till about 2003. This was in 99
Yeah.
till 2003. We continued rehabbing and flipping.
Buying and flipping.
And we ended up getting stuck in a property in 2003 that we spent too much on the purchase because it had major foundation issues we weren't sure about doing back then. Spent too much on the rehab, usual contractor was kind of high end. So all that, so we ended up having to sell it owner finance. So we weren't going to get our money for 4 years. So that was my private money. That was my funding for the deals. I didn't know about hard money. I didn't know about none of this. This is
funding just went
2003. So I had built up to where, you know, like paycheck to paycheck, but big paycheck to big paycheck. You know, you do a rehab and you make money. So we had a townhouse we were living in, me and my wife at the time and our first son. We ended up losing that. And so then we ended up living in a storage room behind somebody's house.
Okay.
Like, it's actually my aunt's house. So now we're living
Your
in a
aunt
12
loves
by
you,
12.
man.
Oh, no,
Yeah, I know.
she's the one who's always taking
and
care
then
of
she's
Take
it.
care of
okay,
you.
you're more than welcome to come in and
Yeah.
crash
You can-
in the backyard.
In the
okay?
backyard, it was a nice shed though. It's a 12 by 12 little shed there. So we moved the lawnmowers out, put a carpet in there, air conditioning with a heater unit and everything. So me and my wife moved in there, and we had our son, and then we stayed there for about a year. We were in there, and then one night, and we had TV and stuff in there. One night I saw a TV commercial that was like, you know, learn how to flip houses with no money and no credit,
Who was
brains.
it? It wasn't Carton Sheets.
No, it was kind of like Carlton Sheets. It was Russ Whitney.
Okay, yeah.
And I actually went to the free class, and then I signed up for the weekend class, and then we get to the class where it's a big expensive class, right?
Right.
So, and then remember, I'm living in a storage room.
Right,
So
right.
I'm living in a storage room.
How do
Did
you
you
pay?
did you
pay
do
for
the credit
coaching?
card thing?
Yeah.
Up in your
My
credit
aunt
limit?
actually, yes, all that. So we you know, I mean, now I'm in the same industry, so I understand, but I also understand what that did for my life, because I remember we didn't have money, so I'm living in a storage room. I don't know how, but my aunt convinced her boss to put the coaching program on his American Express card, telling him that she had an American Express card that could cover it, but you got to pay American Express in 30 days.
Yep.
So we had 30 days to pay him back, and then she had an American Express card, so 30 days to make all the money back to pay off this coaching program. And she did that for me.
Well, talking about being against the
yes.
against the
So
wall.
she
You
did
know
that.
what's funny is he just said it. He lived in a 12 by 12 storage shed, and now he has a 5,000 square foot office that overlooks Houston, and he's got also another side room in the back where he can fit another, how many people?
50 there, 100 on the other side. Yeah.
And so if you're listening to this program right now and you are going through struggles,
We have rentable space.
there is no excuses on why you cannot go and do what AC has done, which is pretty much pull himself out of a big bind, because it's not like, hey, I'm in a bind, man. I need $100. Can you help me out a little bit? No.
Yes.
Now he's not only in that storage shed, but he's also he
debt.
owns I don't know how many thousands and thousands of to American Express.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So his aunt's boss is American Express.
So his aunt can
Your
lose
aunt
her
is
job.
pretty good too, man. She's very persuasive.
My aunt is probably the best person in the world because I know she's definitely been there for me through anything. I mean, like, no one else would believe in somebody
Right.
that's gone through everything I
Absolutely.
went through and in that position. And now she did tell somebody at her job when we signed up for the class, and when we're driving to Fort Worth to this class, she's like, I told my friend at work, and he's a lawyer, and he said this is a scam. And I'm like, don't worry about it. So we get to Fort Worth by noon.
Talking about reinforcement, 4 hours.
I said, so no pressure, right? No pressure.
No.
So the ride to Fort Worth, so we get there, right, by noon on the first day, when they explained the wholesaling, because this whole 3-day class was just wholesaling.
Wholesaling,
Because they said I couldn't afford the big $70,000 coaching package
Right.
at that time. I could only afford like a $20,000 package. So I got one class is all I got, and I was like, I want wholesaling. All I need to know
quick
is
cash.
because I knew rehabbing, I knew how to estimate. I knew real estate. I knew I had the footing on it. So I just didn't understand, how do these people flip houses with no cash and no credit?
Right.
What is
They're
that?
just flipping contracts.
They have many
I
aunts
didn't
like
know
yours.
that. So we went there. So by noon, I told her, I said, this is the best thing we ever done. I got this. So this is in 04, right? So November 22nd, 04 is my first Monday back in Houston in my storage shed from that class. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, I set up a card table in there to get on a little computer that Dell financed me, Dell computers. I don't know
Right.
why they trusted me, but they did for $19 a month. I connected to somebody else's Wi-Fi and going on the online classifieds, doing everything I learned at this class.
Right.
And my wife at the time comes home at noon, bawling, crying her eyes out, just bawling, and hands me a bag from Walgreens with 3 pregnancy tests in it.
And they're all positive.
All positive. Yes,
Yeah.
all of them are positive.
So here we go.
So-
Second child.
So I said, do not tell anyone, because I'm living in a store behind somebody's house and I just put debt on the credit card. Do not tell anyone, especially my family. The guy that taught the class said that said everybody in the class has the information to put $5,000 in your pocket in the next 30 days. I said, we'll make payment arrangements on the money for the classes, everything. We just got to get out of this storage room right now. So did everything they said to do. I was completely coachable, just followed, just start everything they said. Driving to the store, I go through the neighborhood looking for vacant houses, driving for dollars.
Right.
Started calling classifieds, everything. Day 28, hit my first deal and make $14,000.
Boom. That's it.
Boom. Moved out, put $1,500 into marketing, $1,500 to move out, $1,500 in marketing, $11,000 toward my aunt to pay off some debt.
The debt.
And ended up hitting another deal in a few weeks for $8,000, for $4,000, $6,000, made $169,000 my first year wholesaling, and that was and that was a crappy apartment, but it was like a castle to me. I remember it was on 18th Street in TC Jester.
Absolutely.
And it was, oh man, I loved it.
It was
but
a life-changing
event. So that, the going through that year was the change.
What year was it? 2004, right?
2004, yeah.
Okay. So
November 22nd, 04. So really 04, 05 was the beginning of Cityscape Investments, my wholesaling company.
Let me go back one step, because I don't think I got this. Did you ever finish your high school? Did you got like a GED?
No, I finished 8th. Oh, I got a GED.
Okay.
I did get a GED when I was 16. I got my GED when I was 15 and a half years old. So I stopped school when I was 15, and I got my GED when I was 15 and a half.
So there you go, people. I mean, like Ricardo was saying, there's no excuses. There's no reasons why. If you really have the will, if you really want to.
One of the things that I think happened to AC, to be honest, and to him and his family, is that the universe put him against the wall a few times to make him grow. Because if he didn't have that reason on why he needed to go out there and, I mean, he was hungry, but he got home and he just got hungrier. Because he's like, oh, another baby on the way now.
Exactly.
He was like, what? Oh, man, I really need to make this happen now.
Oh, yeah, you want to talk about some pressure.
Right. Yeah. Well, I hope having kids is not what motivated you, because you have, like 20 kids right now?
No.
Hey, between me and my girlfriend, we got 5 boys now.
You got 5?
5 boys.
Wow.
She has 3 boys from a previous marriage. I have 2 boys from a previous marriage, and she has a stepdaughter, too, that's always around us. And
okay.
So we have a lot of kids around.
There's a lot of motivation, man, especially when they start going to college, and I completely understand.
My 18-year-old just did his first deal not too long ago. Yeah,
Good
he
for
just
him.
came in and worked. He only worked for me for a little while, trying to get your kid to work with your do the family business.
It doesn't
stuff.
necessarily work.
It's tough. I know exactly what you're talking about.
He worked about a week and did a deal for about $10,000.
And then he went, Dad, I quit.
And then
It's like, what are you gonna do, son? I'm going on my own.
I'm going on my own.
I've been seeing you do it, Dad. I know I can do it better than you are. Okay. So
I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for that moment.
So okay, let's go back to 2004. You made all that money.
Yeah,
which was a lot of money,
Yeah.
by the way. I think
that is a
in
lot of
2004, I was in the Navy. I was making probably 13,000 a year.
13?
Dude, I barely pay my ex-wife. By the time I pay her, I might have had like $100 left for the whole month. So
it's more like $2,400.
yeah, I mean, in 2006, that's a different story, but I'm not gonna get there. This is about AC. So you went and made $168,000, and you remember that number very well.
He remembers dates.
He
remembers everything.
He didn't hesitate. He didn't flinch. Nothing.
I remember things.
I mean, because those things are important. You
remember the big things,
right? Those things change people's life. Most people in this country, they don't make more than $40,000 a year.
Yeah. I just sold. So at the end of that first year, so we moved into that apartment, and then at the end of the year, so I was like, I want to take over a subject 2 house for me and my wife to move into. We're looking, we couldn't find one. So I'm about to re-sign a lease for another year. The next day at the apartments, I'm depositing a wholesale check at the bank, and I have magnet signs on my truck. The lady behind me says, hey, I got a house in Shepherd Forest, which is where I always wanted to live, that I'm trying to sell. You want to take a look at it right now? And so I go with her. I ended up taking that house over subject 2 for subject 2 in Shepherd Forest for $100,000. Now I've owned that house. I ended up getting divorced later, so that house I've rented it out. I've lived there. I ended up remodeling a few years ago and moving back in after my divorce, and then we just sold it, and that ended up being my biggest deal ever, and that seeded back then, but we just cleared $186,000 last week on that property.
Wow.
And we rented it for a while, so it cash flowed.
So you got the cash
and that was
flow money.
but that's a subject to deal.
Yeah.
Like, and I've done a lot of good subject to deals like that. But
Yeah.
but the thing is, that was my very first real investment property, and it seeded something even 18 years later, 15 years later.
They, so it's one of those things, right? So most people they just want that quick $5 grand, 10 grand, which is fine because that keeps food on the table, it keeps bills paid for, especially when you're starting. But now that you're thinking ahead, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna start picking up some subject twos. I'm gonna start picking up some rentals.
That's how I built up my rental property. So when I was married, we had like 27 rental properties, and most of those were subject twos. And so yeah, no, subject to. I love subject to.
Okay, we
do
got one right now. You can buy 40 grand. Okay, so 2005, then you hit your first big year, pretty much.
That was the first year.
What happened after that? How did it continue to
grow? So I ended up. I was a one-man show doing everything myself. So starting in the storage room, so doing everything, making calls, doing everything. First piece I replaced myself was a virtual assistant to help me schedule. A virtual receptionist actually to take all the incoming calls.
Okay.
And put it into my CRM, and then a virtual assistant that would help me. Follow up on the leads and kind of get more information and line me up to where I was really virtually wholesaling here in Houston. I never met my buyers or sellers. I would go at like a Starbucks during the day and work for about an hour and a half a day. My virtual assistant would have all my leads for that day lined up for everything I needed to negotiate. So I called all the hot ones. So about an hour and a half a day, I do all negotiating, offering, and then they do all the rest. And the next day I'd come back and do all that. So we were doing about 28, 35 deals a year that way. I continued doing that until I ended up meeting doing a podcast type show with a national guru who actually was from Houston.
Right.
And ended up doing like the podcast show, ended up hitting it off real good with him. We got together for lunch and then just decided we wanted to put something together to make a difference in people's lives, and that's where Prosperity was born.
Okay.
And so that's our coaching education company, and so we ended up starting that year. That was in 2012. And that just kind of blew up. Like all of our students started making over six figures in their first year, and just start like I'm talking like we even had some students making $670,000 in their first year and a half, and some like now those students have gone on to make some of them are making over $1 million a year.
Yeah,
now.
Some of them are on their own now.
Like literally over $1 million in profit per year now. Some of those beginners.
Let me take it a step back, AC.
I'm gonna have to sign up for the class. What is that?
I want to take it a step back because this is something that I hear people, questioning themselves or asking the question all the time, and it's like, if you were doing so good with your wholesaling business, we're talking about the numbers, you're doing 20-something houses every year, why get in the education business? And I know we already talked about this, and there's a why.
Oh yeah.
But people often ask, if he's doing so well for himself, why is he selling courses? Why is he going now for? Some people see it as the low-hanging fruit, right? We know that education is not that easy either. It's hard work. You had to put a lot of hours and a team together to handle it. But some people, that's what they think. And if he's doing so well for himself,
he's a scam. He's a scam. He's
just
out there to get my money.
Why get in the education business? Why go after the low-hanging fruit? So, tell us a little bit more. And again, we already talked about this, but I want people to know exactly what happened. So you said, now it's time for me to pay it forward, or however you want to call it. But
so I guess first of all, meeting with the guy, my first business partner, he was going through a time in his life where he was wanting to contribute. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I guess I was about 33 at the time, 33, 34. So I was going, and it's also about the time I met my mother for the first time, and I went through this class called Landmark and self-development class. But so I was going through all that right now when I met up with this guy. And so I'm going through this time in my life where it's like, just made a bunch of money. I've been doing this a year, making very good money every year. And now it's like, I don't want to be this guy who just made money. There's got to be more to life. Now, I didn't have any idea about coaching or education. It had nothing to do with coaching or education. I didn't even know that yet until I met my business partner. And he was like, hey, let's pay it forward and contribute to the success of others. So that's where that came from. And then the matter is, you can leverage when you coach and you have education. So you can go from doing 28 to 35 deals a year. And when we leverage, so then we built a team and we can get up to 60, 70 deals a year. And then you throw in students who want to partner with you, because students, some partner with you, some don't. So you can add another 30, 40 deals a year partnering with students, or buying I've bought a lot of my properties from my students also too. So they can wholesale, they'll be the wholesaler and I'll be the rehabber or the buyer.
Okay, so but one thing you mentioned that it's very important is that it came to a point where money really wasn't your motivation anymore. You had the money, you were doing really well for yourself and your family, and you start looking for that something else. You mentioned something about self-motivation and going to what is it,
Landmark. I went Landmark Worldwide.
Can you very briefly tell our audience, what do you do in terms of your personal development? What do you do to, are you an avid reader? Or you're more like audiobook type of guy? What do you do for self-growth and keep, searching for that why?
Definitely audiobooks. I'm not a reading. It's more about my ADD. I can read. My girlfriend makes fun of me because sometimes I'll go to the doctor's office and I'll tell the nurse, I'm sorry, I don't know how to read. And then they'll fill out the paperwork for me, so she makes fun of me. But I'm like, but I know how to read. But my ADD kicks in and I'll just, I won't make it through a book. But audiobooks, I love audiobooks when I'm driving. Mm-hmm. I'm in the car a lot. I love to drive. And when I'm driving, I love to listen to audiobooks because they do inspire you.
Yeah, they rewire
Think
your
and Grow
brain.
Rich. I listen to Think and Grow Rich a lot. Mm-hmm. What's the Traction is a book that I've listened to like 4 times in the past 6 months over and over again because I'm using that in my business a lot.
Right.
So no, I'm definitely big on audiobooks.
What about do you attend events like I don't know, just want to throw Tony Robbins out there? What do you do in terms of like?
I almost went to Tony Robbins last time, but my schedule, because we had a seminar at the same time he has one, but I do want to go before, he's getting older too, so before he doesn't do those, and one day he might retire. Who knows?
Well, how important? Tell our audience.
Give me 1 second, Dennis.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's gonna continue on the second part of this podcast, because this one is officially over for today. Tune in. If you want to follow the AC Ramos story, you need to check it out next week. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Send it to your grandma, grandpa, your aunt, everybody and their mama, okay?
We'll keep next week following this story that's amazing. It gets better, so just stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Thank you.